This is the Comica VM40. It is a shotgun. Wait. Okay, that probably isn't gonna work. Oh, all right, much better. But yeah, actually, you know, I kind of got it on with you guys because why did nobody tell me they made microphones this good? So yeah, Comica made this mic, the VM40. You probably have seen a lot about this thing recently. This is a high quality, great sounding 32-bit internally recording camera or wireless shotgun microphone. Comica did send this out for review, the single mic version, so keep that in mind, but they didn't ask me to say anything in particular or have any input on the video whatsoever. So my goal in this video is to test a few things in the field, like audio quality, wireless transmission range, and see just what strengths and weaknesses there are when it comes to the VM40. But at the end of the day, just the number of combinations you can use this in makes this one of the most versatile mics out there, especially for the price. There are tons of different combinations you can use this mic for, and so let's go over a few of those now. So the first one that comes to mind, being that this can record internally, is just independently recording somewhere. This is going to be the best audio quality, taking advantage of that 32-bit float, and you can rely on it to just kind of keep going until the battery dies. Although there is a small gap every hour, so that's definitely something to keep in mind. And it's good to keep the receiver around in this mode as well, since you start and stop the recording basically using that receiver as just a remote trigger, for example. Another great use is just going to be as an on-camera microphone plugged directly into your camera, like the GH7, for example. This is going to be almost as good quality and has been the easiest option for me. The microphone turns on and off with your camera, so you don't either forget to turn this thing off and end up with a dead battery, or forget to turn it on and end up with a bunch of silent audio clips. It's just really nice that this was something that they figured out. Although if you're recording 32-bit float on this thing and you turn your camera off, it will in fact end that recording. So you can get around this by, you know, turning it on, starting the recording, and then turning the camera on. Overall, I think the fact that it wakes up and turns off with your camera is a huge benefit for sure overall. And then of course, the final way to capture audio is wirelessly. You get a few extras when recording this way, in my opinion. First, of course, there's just the utility to extend your mic's range and capture audio without a cable, whether that's on a boom mic, on a mic stand, capturing an event, or even just doing like those interviews that sometimes that they ask for at weddings, where you can just hand someone this microphone and they can speak right into it. It's very nice. I actually have found the range to be pretty good, surprisingly good actually, compared to some of the other stuff I've seen, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. The other extra benefits are going to be you can record with 2 microphones instead of 1 if you're doing an interview or anything that needs 2 microphones. Plus, you get access to the noise reduction levels, so you can have it at 0, 1, or 2 to save you a little bit of time in post. Plus, of course, like I said before, you can just use this feature as essentially a trigger to record this remotely with a button on the receiver. And finally, it'll let you get around limitations of something like the S9 that has a mic jack but no headphone jack. So you could plug this mic in and the receiver in and put your headphones on that receiver to kind of hear what you're getting more or less. So as long as it's not clipping inside the S9, you'll be good. Anyway, those are the ways I've been shooting with this microphone. Let's head outside and test out some audio quality things as well as its range. Okay, so I just want to take a look at how the audio sounds here. We're on a mono track there, and now let's cut to the internal 32-bit recording of this and see how this wireless really sounds. Now that's my biggest thing here, is whether you go from, I mean, you're losing 32-bit float, so the further away you get from the microphone, as in whether it's a wire or whether it's wireless, you're going to lose some of that audio quality, even if it is just the 30-bitness. So here is mono, and again, this is inside the camera. Here is 32-bit float inside the microphone. So whether it was 3.5 millimeters or wireless, I thought it all sounded pretty good actually, better than I kind of anticipated. I figured there'd be some loss over wireless, but there wasn't. Although of course the 32-bit float internally obviously always sounds the best. But before we move on, let's jump back outside and test the noise reduction and how that works and what you might want to use that for. I've got white noise blasting from my phone, and this is no noise reduction in the camera. So let's switch to noise reduction level 1. So now we've got noise reduction level 1 here. I wonder how well it's working. How well does my voice sound? All right, we've got level 2 of noise reduction here. And again, blasting full volume on my phone. You heard it earlier. And this is just my voice directly being transmitted wirelessly to the camera. So there you go. Let's see what it says in post. And let's see what it sounds like when the noise isn't here. Does my voice sound more normal, less normal, about the same? And then slowly bringing in our white noise to like right next to the mic. This is probably an insane test. Who knows I don't know what I'm doing, guys. I've never reviewed a microphone before. So some interesting results here for sure. The noise reduction was pretty effective for stuff you aren't gonna really have a chance to edit, maybe quick turnaround, things like that. The high noise reduction can certainly sound a tiny bit artificial, but still not bad. But I don't know. It was so good. I would almost consider leaving the low setting on most of the time. I thought maybe this might be a gimmick, but it actually can be kind of useful for sure. And of course, you have the high and low cut options on the microphone itself as well. I figured most people know how that works, so I didn't test it, and I wanted to get this review done. So go ahead and check out Matthew Dangu's video for that. He does a great job too and has a good perspective on this microphone as well. Anyway, let's get to the real challenge though, the range test. And a few reviews I've seen have had mixed opinions on this, so let's see what we can do. All right, so now we're gonna test the range on this thing. I've heard various things here, so I guess we'll see. So, yeah, the range here, I'm very curious to see how it is. Personally, I haven't used the wireless in the field at all, and I think this is more of a situation where, I think there is some use for it, but I've mostly personally been using it either as an on-camera microphone or just putting it somewhere, hitting record, and you're good to go. And I think that is one of the biggest uses of this thing, is just monitoring your audio potentially and not necessarily relying on it to, capture your final production audio from this far away. This is more like, hand this to someone doing an interview, or I've used it at weddings to just hand this to somebody and have them talk into this instead of, running a cord. So in my opinion, the wireless is a nice feature. Oh, I'm running out of room here. The wireless is a nice feature, but for me, I turned my back to it. Maybe that's not good. There's a pole in the way. Oh, this test is going off the rails. But for me, it's one of those things where wireless is not something I would personally rely on 100%. But if you do, I guess that's fine. Can the camera even see me? Maybe 35 millimeters wasn't the best. But either way, because I'm recording internally, which is I think a big benefit, I'm getting the best audio quality there, and I'm getting the ability to sync this up and fix it and correct it in the case that the transmission does cut out, which I'm sure it did at some point in this. I can barely see my camera anymore. So overall, really decent range. The first test, I intentionally walked backwards and only really lost the signal when I was behind some stuff. So let's put this mic on hard mode and face away from the camera and try to go even further. Thankfully, because of Panasonic's great autofocus, it'll still be able to track me. Watch it fail after I said that. All right, so this is the test of me facing away from it, just because I was actually really impressed with the range on that one. Maybe it was because I was holding it towards the bottom. I've seen some stuff about like where the transmitter and receiver is on this thing, and so maybe that was part of why it worked so well, but I didn't anticipate it going as far as it did because I've seen some other tests that weren't nearly as good. So I guess maybe hold it towards the bottom and make sure you're facing the camera and you'll get pretty good results. So I guess that's my 2 cents here, and who knows if this has even gone away. I've also heard some stuff about, how long it takes to pick back up after it loses you. And that's something I'm interested in trying as well. So, who knows? We'll see. I'm running out of things to say. Man, audio tests are hard because you kind of just got to keep yapping, don't you? But I'm further now than I was before. So we cut out here, and I don't have another mic to test it out, but it comes back pretty much right when I get back into frame. And chicken fence and stuff like that. There's a cat approaching the camera. Watch out for those people out there that don't like cats. What am I talking about? I'm just going to keep talking because I got to see if, it picks me back up. So obviously it didn't perform as well as facing the camera, but honestly, I was still pretty impressed. I made it nearly as far as the first test before it cut out at all. And it really only completely failed when I was 100% obscured. And it did reconnect once I reappeared. So sure, it isn't the longest range in the world, but it was honestly a lot more than what I expected based on what I heard online. Maybe it was because I was holding it towards the bottom of the microphone. I feel like I saw something about the transmitter being somewhere in the middle here. So if you have to go a long distance, hold it towards the bottom, I suppose. And then of course you can always just record internal 32-bit float and use the wireless more as a monitoring or syncing sort of thing. So I'd say the usability and build is nice overall. I think it looks the part for sure, but it's not the most intuitive thing ever made. Materials are nice, all the accessories and wind covers that come with it, especially in that case, very welcome. Although this thing, in terms of wind, is only okay, and the more furry one I think works okay, although I've heard mixed things about it from other people. I haven't taken it on a super windy day just yet. The mic especially, all of the buttons and knobs and everything is all perfectly fine. The size is just about perfect for being like an on-camera microphone. 3.5mm out, USB-C for charging and file transfers, and a nice adjustment knob on the back for sure. It's just too bad, I guess, that knob only goes to 10 and doesn't go to 11. You'd think the 32-bit could handle it, but that's a Spinal Tap reference, by the way. Go watch it. And 32-bit recording is kind of like the going to 11 of microphones for sure, and it is really handy. Some people have found the controls overall, though, kind of unintuitive, but here's how it works. You hold down this button to turn it on, and that button also is used to turning on or off the safety track recording when plugged directly into your camera with that 3.5mm jack. Short taps on that top button are going to be toggling the high and low pass, or both or neither, and also recording your internal 32-bit float. So you're going to need to make sure the screen is turned on, hit any of the buttons, make it light up, and then hold that button to start recording. Oh, and to get those recordings off the mic, you're going to hold both buttons down to enter copy mode. The lights from top to bottom are the blue, low, and high frequency buttons, the red recording button, and a green or blue light that indicates blue for wireless and green when it's connected to your camera. It comes with a receiver as well. This thing is a little bit plasticky compared to the mic itself, but works okay. They'll auto pair right away, but here's what the buttons do. Center button is power, and then you tap it to switch from stereo, which is only used for having two microphones, mono, or safety, just like before. Easy, right? The controls are kind of confusing with the two microphone pack, so we're not going to talk about that. Just use the app if you do that. But for one microphone, it's easy. Left is volume down, right is volume up. If you hold down the left button, it switches between different levels of noise reduction, which is nice. And the right button can remotely trigger your recording, which is pretty nice. Like I said, if you use two mics, just the buttons all change around. So I would just use maybe the app if you have more than one mic. Let's get into final thoughts and recaps here. Either way, most of the time, I think I'm probably going to be also recording 32-bit float as a backup, just in case. Kind of like keeping the raw file for photos around. And honestly, maybe that's the best way to think about this mic in general. I know people do always talk about the 32-bit float being like a raw photo with the most flexibility, and that definitely holds true here. All the other ways you can capture sound with this microphone, wireless, wired, you can think of that more like a JPEG, right? You get minimal effort, but for most things, it's probably going to turn out just fine. You can probably get away with plugging this mic into your camera or wirelessly transmitting in a lot of situations. But unless you really clip something, you're going to be fine. But if you're recording 32-bit float, you've always got that backup that can pretty much 99.9% of the time, unless you overload the actual capsule in the microphone, you're going to be able to get something usable out of this mic. And I think that's the biggest thing here, is it gives you that backup, that safety, that peace of mind, and just generally that versatility and redundancy, I think is going to be what is attracting so many people to this microphone. And I like that Comica took their previous version, the VM30, listened to feedback and made it better. So overall, I have to say, I was just really impressed by this package. I think the one microphone package is going to work for everybody, but if you need the two microphones, go for it. But yeah, and before I let you go, don't think I forgot about some of those issues, so let's get into it. Sure, the button layout and usability isn't 100% intuitive, and I did have to read the manual, which is always a downside for me, but I don't really mind some of the stuff. Like the way you transfer files seems to be fine, but it is a little picky about what USB-C cable it wants to use. So definitely keep the one it comes with handy. The basic wind cover, this one isn't that handy, and the other one is better, but just okay. If you're even gonna maybe be outside, use the fuzzy one for sure. When recording internal 32-bit float, there are, I guess, two issues. One is that gap in recording we talked about earlier, but like I said, having to do that workaround of when you power down the camera, it ends your recording. That threw me off for a little bit, so just make sure you start the recording before the camera is powered on, and that's pretty much it. Not a lot, I know, but I just want to say thanks again to Comica for making this great mic, sending me one out, because I don't know if I knew I needed this until I tested it out, but if I had this in this back, I would absolutely buy it again for sure. So hopefully this helped, provided a different experience, a new perspective on this microphone, was useful for some of you guys. And thanks for stopping by. Thanks for watching. Thanks for always supporting the channel. And if you're subscribed, of course, as always, I'll see you when I see you.